and I have a message for you all. I know there are skeptics here, those evil people, the deniers, skeptics, and they somehow have never convinced me. And I know all the arguments, I know about natural variability and climate change, and I know the stuff about the models being complete and all that, but I'm still not convinced. And there's one reason why I still reckon that global warming is going to do us all in. It's my trump card in the debate. You know what that is? I have seen the movie. Not just Al Gore, but since I was a little kid in the 1950s, I've seen all those eco-catastrophe type movies. And I reckon the first one in the late 1950s that I saw, probably the first global warming catastrophist movie, was called The Day the Earth Exploded. Remember that one? The Earth's orbit goes off slightly, and we get so close to the sun that there are devastating consequences. And when you look back on the 1950s, how wacky they were. I mean, they even thought back then that solar radiation somehow influenced climate and how weird were they? Yeah, I was a bit of a greenie in the 1980s, I acknowledge that, and I was a member of the Conservation Foundation, and I'm going to blow the lid on them a bit tonight. You know, the ACF has a lot of members, like thousands of members, and later tonight I'm going to tell you how we used to use this diagram to recruit thousands of people. Now, I've got to say that being in the ACF, I can understand the kind of mentality, and essentially what you've got to understand with those real hardline greenies is that they think that every little thing that is done in their personal life is having an impact on driving the planet to disaster. So every little thing that I did, I used to think of in terms of my impact on the planet. And it was a bit embarrassing at times because one thing I did was become a vegetarian, of course. And it meant I ate a lot of beans. And of course, when you eat a lot of beans, you get a lot of flatulence. And I used to find myself, whenever I passed wind, I'd feel morally obliged to rush outside and plant a shrub. Release into the atmosphere. It gets like that. And when I hear them go on about how we need to convert everybody to our point of view, it scares me. I think, imagine if everybody did end up with that mindset. You might have a better environment, I don't know, but you'd end up with 6.5 billion neurotics on the planet all running around saying, we're going to die, we're going to die. It just wouldn't be feasible. It wouldn't be worth being on the planet. And then it gets serious too, because I'll give you an example. I have 2 kids. I have a 12-year-old daughter, I've got a 14-year-old son, primary and high schools. And my daughter came home one day and she said, oh, Dad, we had a relief teacher today, and they told the class that if we don't do something about global warming within 50 years, we're all going to die. And I thought, geez, how is that? These are young kids who you want to have a positive outlook, you want to have hope for the future. They're being taught that there's this terrible situation where they're going to die. They all get the Al Gore movie, and they don't get the other point of view. As a parent, of course, I want my kids to learn clear thinking and critical thinking, because frankly I want them to grow up to be little rebels. I want them to make a difference. And
that's why we're fascists.
You know, my daughter, the other day, like I was brushing my teeth the other day, and I felt like somebody was watching me, and I turned around and there's this lovely little daughter of mine standing there with a clipboard and a pad and a pen taking notes. And I said to Helen, I said, oh, what are you doing? And she said, my father, at the school they have asked us to survey the family's water use. things really horrify me about that. First of all, the intrusive nature of the state through the schools coming into our family like that. But the second thing was, my daughter never used to speak with a stereotype. The weirdness that's around, it's such strange times we're living through. Sometimes I feel like I've entered an episode of The Twilight Zone. You remember that old 1960s sci-fi? Yeah. It's like that all the time. And like everything is blamed on global warming. You notice that? Even when there's periods of cooling, it is blamed on global warming. Everything's blamed on global warming except when we have a week like we've had in Canberra of beautiful spring weather. It's as though that can't be connected to any warming that may or may not be happening. I just don't get it. And with politics, again, the Twilight Zone, I keep hearing that theme music. You know, you get people saying they're on the left. Well, I reckon I'm on the left. I've always believed that being on the left politically means you're committed to material progress and people being uplifted in their conditions of life, and you want more production and industry and innovation. You want society to improve for people, especially those who aren't on top of the pile. But when I hear people on the radio and that talking about being on the left, they're always saying, oh, the workers have got too much, they're consuming too much. It's as though the left now wants to cut back and reduce what the standard of living is. When I quiz them about this, how is that left wing? They go on about how they don't want the third world to industrialise and modernise because it'll be bad for the planet. So they end up arguing that the workers in the advanced countries should have reductions in their living standards so that we can keep the third world trapped in poverty. That's left wing. I know of no left wing tradition who believe that. Then there's the so-called right wing. I read the column of Andrew Bolt and Janet Albertson. They're right wingers, aren't they, on top? And what do? They're constantly going against public opinion, challenging official points of view, challenging the establishment. When I did that at university 40 years ago, I got expelled. What's going on? And the other thing I don't get, this talk about affluenza. You heard about affluenza, how we're all getting more stuff, but it's making us unhappy. I mean, who else but a bourgeois academic, a pseudo-leftist, who has enjoyed all the benefits of modern industrial society could come up with a concept like affluenza? My parents, we were migrants. We got off the boat at Port Melbourne in 1954, and you know, there was lots of work around there. My father worked in a factory, but the problem back then was accommodation. And we were your typical migrants walking the streets for our first 2 years with our suitcases. We stayed in 7 different boarding houses. In each boarding house, you just had one room for a whole family. It was pretty rough and pretty difficult on my parents. And whenever I hear this talk about affluenza, I think of those times and I think, affluenza, I wish. Our problem was that we had economy class syndrome. We wanted affluenza. I think if Clive Hamilton wants to get a bit real on affluenza, he could spend a couple of years trying poverty enza.